It felt real, unsettlingly so, like I'd stepped into a moment I wasn't supposed to enter. I should have stopped it. Cleared my throat, shifted the subject, walked away. Any of those would have been enough. But I didn't, because somewhere beneath the sensible voice in my head, there was something softer, more dangerous, whispering back. A part of me liked it, liked being noticed, liked the way his attention landed on me as if I still mattered, as if I hadn't faded into the background of my own life. I told myself it meant nothing, just a glance, just a second held too long, just harmless curiosity. But nothing is harmless when you've been starving for affection, when your heart has gone so long without warmth that it begins to confuse danger with desire, attention with intimacy. And then he said it. One sentence, barely louder than the air between us. I want to watch. Everything inside me went still, because in the quietest, most private corner of my chest, I recognized the truth before I was ready to face it. Some part of me wanted the same. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, because the stories we carry in silence are often the ones we need to hear the most. I'm 36 years old, and for the past 8 years, I've worn many titles. Wife, mother, organizer of schedules, keeper of calm, the one who smooths things over before they turn sharp. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being myself. I can't pinpoint the exact moment it happened. Maybe it was the night he came home and went straight to the couch without saying a word. Or the week his touch disappeared, except by accident, like brushing past a stranger. We used to be close, not just physically, but emotionally. He noticed the small things, a new haircut, a change in my mood. He used to ask how my day went and wait for the answer. Now most evenings follow the same script. He walks in, nods, pours a drink, turns on the news, and disappears into the glow of the screen. I used to wait up for him. Now I turn off the lights and crawl into bed alone. Even when he's beside me, the distance feels endless. There's no shouting, no betrayal anyone could point to. Just a slow unraveling, like a single thread pulled loose, slowly weakening everything without making a sound. And then there was him. He's 19. He moved in a few months ago, his college close enough to justify the spare room. Family in a vague way. Close enough that no one questioned it. Distant enough that no one set clear boundaries. He's quiet, keeps mostly to himself. But he notices everything, not with judgment, with presence. Sometimes he'd sit across the room and I'd feel his awareness before I ever met his eyes. Not staring, just seeing. I'd be wiping down the counter and glance up to find him watching the way I moved, the way my hands hesitated. Pouring coffee, I'd sense him noticing the slight tremor in my grip I pretended wasn't there. He never looked away. Never rushed to fill the silence. And maybe that's what drew me in. Not his words, not his appearance, but the fact that he paid attention. Our house looks perfect. Clean lines, neutral colors, carefully chosen decor. The kind of place people admire the moment they step inside. But it doesn't feel alive. It feels staged, like a showroom no one actually lives in. And slowly, without realizing it, I became part of that display. Polished, placed, quiet. I don't think anyone noticed how empty I felt. Not even me. Not until he did. It didn't start dramatically. It didn't feel wrong at first. It was the way he paused in doorways. The way he remembered things I'd mentioned in passing days earlier. The way he listened without interrupting, as if every word mattered. And gradually, I began to notice him too. Not deliberately, just instinctively. I'd enter a room and register whether he was there. And when he wasn't, something felt absent. I told no one. How could I? How do you explain a feeling you don't yet have words for? All I knew was that in a house filled with silence, he was the only one who made me feel like I still existed. It was a Saturday afternoon. Late, heavy with heat. The kind that clings to your skin and slows your thoughts. Windows open, fans humming. The house wrapped in that peculiar weekend quiet. My husband was out, said he had errands to run, which usually meant hours wandering aisles without purpose, and the silence stretched on. I had gone to the laundry room to escape. The air was thick with the clean, sharp scent of detergent and sun-dried fabric. I was wearing an old, loose shirt, no bra, my hair pulled up without thought. Sweat clung to the back of my neck. I wasn't dressed up. I wasn't trying. I was comfortable, invisible, the way I'd learned to be. I was folding towels, his, my husband's, the boys', when I felt it, that unmistakable awareness that someone was watching me. Not imagined, not paranoia. I turned, and there he was, standing in the doorway. He didn't speak, didn't smile, didn't move closer or back away. He just looked at me, not a passing glance, not polite. It was deliberate, focused, still. I should have adjusted my shirt, should have looked down, should have said something, anything. But I didn't. I froze. We stood there, him in the doorway, me beside the basket, a towel still folded in my hands. Our eyes locked, and neither of us broke away. It couldn't have lasted more than a few seconds, but it stretched, heavy and charged, like the air itself had thickened. Something unspoken moved between us and back again. Then I blinked. He stepped back, and he was gone. No explanation, no words, just the sound of his footsteps fading down the hallway. That night, we ate dinner together, the three of us. My husband was only half present, scrolling through his phone between bites like he always did. I barely touched my food, and him, the boy, he was quiet. But more than that, he didn't look at me. Not once. His gaze stayed fixed on his plate. His answers were short, careful. He never met my eyes. And I noticed, because now I was paying attention. After dinner, my husband turned on the TV and called out to him. "Hey, come watch this." He said he was tired, said he had homework, said he needed to be alone. I watched him go up the stairs. He didn't turn back, didn't glance my way. That was when I knew something had shifted. Not just in him, but in me, because I could still feel the weight of his stare from earlier. And worse than that, I missed it. I told myself it was nothing. Just a look. Just a strange moment on a hot afternoon. A disruption in an otherwise ordinary day. But it clung to me. Not the way he looked at me, but the way it made me feel. That night, as I got ready for bed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Same face, same body. But I paused, tilted my head, looked closer than I had in years, and the thought slipped in before I could stop it. Would he look again? I felt ashamed, embarrassed by myself. This was someone half my age, someone I had no right to think about, someone I shouldn't want attention from. But shame doesn't erase curiosity, and curiosity finds space when no one else seems to notice you exist. My husband came home late. He smelled like whiskey and fatigue. He didn't ask about dinner, didn't apologize. He kicked off his shoes, climbed into bed fully dressed, and turned his back to me. No goodnight, no glance, nothing. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind circling one thing over and over. Not touch, not words. Just the way that boy had seen me. The next morning, I moved more slowly getting dressed. Not for my husband. Not even entirely for him. For myself. I pulled on a pair of shorts I hadn't worn in a while. loose where they should be, fitted where they mattered. My shirt slipped off one shoulder. Nothing obvious, just enough. I walked past the hallway where he usually sat with his laptop. I didn't look at him, but I felt it. The subtle shift in the air when someone's eyes follow you. Later, I leaned against the counter with my coffee and said something small, something meaningless. I guess the laundry room's hotter than I thought. Every night, my husband came home later, more exhausted, more distant. Some nights, he didn't come home at all. He said he fell asleep at the office, said work was demanding, something important was finally coming together. I stopped questioning it, and in that quiet, my thoughts began to drift where I didn't want them to go. He wants to watch. The words followed me everywhere. When I brushed my hair, when I caught my reflection in passing mirrors, when I bent down to pick something up and wondered, briefly, shamefully, if he might be nearby. Guilt trailed me like a shadow, but it wasn't alone. There was something else growing beside it, a longing that had nothing to do with touch, or romance, or love. It was simpler than that. I wanted to be noticed, to be someone's pause in a world that never slowed down, to matter, even for a second, even in silence. And every time I remembered his eyes, I remembered how warm I felt beneath them, how awake. That frightened me most of all, because part of me didn't want that feeling to disappear, and another part had no idea how to stop it. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind that stretches on endlessly, with no plans and too much space between the walls. The living room was dim, lit only by the soft flicker of the television casting shadows across the floor. Something was playing, a movie I'd seen before. I couldn't tell you what it was. I just needed the noise. He came in halfway through, didn't ask if he could sit, didn't announce himself. He simply lowered himself onto the couch, far enough away to feel appropriate, close enough to feel present. I could sense the heat of him beside me, the quiet awareness of another body that makes you suddenly conscious of your own breathing. He didn't speak, didn't move, and I didn't tell him to leave. I should have stood up, cleared my throat, created distance. Instead, I shifted slightly, crossed one leg over the other, let the hem of my shorts ride just a fraction higher. I told myself it meant nothing, that it wasn't for him. But I knew the truth. The movie continued. He never looked directly at me, but I felt him in the pauses between scenes, in the way he didn't lean away when I edged just a little closer. We stayed like that until the credits rolled. Then he stood, said goodnight, and walked out. No touch, no misplaced word, but the air felt different afterward, as if we'd stepped into something unnamed, something waiting. The next morning, I came downstairs early. The house was still asleep. As I poured my coffee, I noticed a scrap of paper on the counter. Torn, folded once, a single word written in his handwriting. Beautiful. No signature, no explanation. I stood there longer than I should have, my heart beating harder than the moment deserved. It was ridiculous. One word. But I hadn't heard it in years, not directed at me, not from someone who meant it. I slipped the paper into my robe pocket before anyone else woke up. That day, I moved through the house differently. Every room felt charged. Every silence felt full. My husband didn't notice. He scrolled through his phone at dinner, laughed at something no one else saw, went to bed early. I watched him disappear down the hallway, wondering how someone could live so close and feel so far away. Later that week, I went to the guest room for towels. I didn't knock. I'm not sure why. Or maybe I am. He was standing by the dresser, shirtless, his back to me at first. When he turned, He didn't rush to cover himself, didn't reach for a shirt. He just looked at me, calm, steady. "You knew I was in here," he said. My breath caught, but I didn't deny it, didn't explain, because he was right. After that, things changed quietly. I dressed,